Hello everyone, and welcome back to UConn's second annual Global Health Symposium. We're so glad that you've decided to join us today. We're very excited now to present the Reframing Refugee Health panel. As you've probably heard by now in some iteration or another, your zip code is a better predictor of your health than your genetic code. We have began to explore the idea of the birth lottery and uncovered some unsurprising truths. There are some clear winners and some clear losers in this lottery. But as we've seen, this isn't a game of pure chance. Rather, it is systematically rigged, favoring the health and well-being of some groups over others. Still, there are those fortunate few who've been offered a second chance at the lottery. Migrants and refugees who've been given a chance to resettle in new resource-rich countries. Surely they've won this time. Unfortunately, such is not the case. Suffering for refugees does not end once they are resettled. Rather, they face an uphill battle against many more challenges which lie ahead. And of course, the first thing to suffer is their health. In order to illustrate this, I invite you to entertain the following scenario. If everyone at the end on this side, whoever's at the end of each row could raise their hand, that'd be great. Just at the last person at this end of the row. Yep. And now if every second person could raise their hand as well, that'd be fantastic. And just going all the way across the room. Yep, great, thank you. So you may now put your hands down. I'd like those that raise their hands to imagine that they are refugees who have just arrived in the United States. You're in a new home, a new city, in a new state in a foreign country. You just barely understand English, and speaking is even more challenging. But you're expected to get a job within your first 6 months and be self-sustaining by the end of the year. You also have a family to care for. You're able to enroll your kids in school, and they too are having trouble adjusting, but are able to adapt with the help of your support. Meanwhile, you're still suffering from the trauma of the events that have taken place in your native country. And you worry for those who were not able to escape like you were. And you worry for your spouse who also wasn't able to escape. You completed cultural orientation, which was meant to help you adjust to your new environment, and had a resettlement worker show you how to catch public transport, go to the doctor and bank, and find a place to learn English. But now you barely remember anything because it was just all too overwhelming. But with the little energy and concentration you're able to muster up, you can muster a tiny squiggle, which is your signature, and everywhere you go, you're asked to sign here. Now everyone else who didn't raise their hand, imagine you're a healthcare worker. You have 15 minutes to see a patient, and you have recently taken on refugee patients, and things are not going well. Many of your patients present with many complex health problems, which challenge your expertise, even in the most favorable of settings. But the barriers are making things almost impossible. Your patients often don't show up for their appointments, they may show up late, or they may only show up when they're ill. Healthcare workers, you're frustrated. Refugees, you're scared. Clearly, there's a gap between these two parties that must be bridged. Now, it's important to remember that this is not the story for every refugee. Rather, this is just one of infinite scenarios. When discussing refugee and migrant health, it is important to consider the whole story. The trauma and effects of one's past compound with the stress of adjusting to a new country, culture, and lifestyle to make daily tasks difficult, leading to feelings of low self-esteem, disempowerment, and social isolation. The ability to overcome those obstacles is not a testament to strength and willpower, but rather access to the right resources. It is my pleasure to now introduce you to today's panelists who will discuss reframing the narrative and bridging this gap in refugee health. Today's panel, first we have Susan Nasseri. Susan is a junior at the University of Connecticut, pursuing a double major in political science and human rights. She's a member of the honors program and special program in law, and has received distinctions as a Holster Scholar, University Scholar, Truman Scholar nominee, and IDEA Grant recipient. She has amassed research and field experience working with refugees and asylum seekers. As a Holster scholar, she conducted qualitative interviews with the administrative heads of NGOs across Connecticut to find that integration programs are more assimilative rather than acculturative. As an intern at UConn Law's Asylum and Human Rights Clinic, she conducted country conditions research for the 6 clients seeking their assistance to receive asylum. Spanning from Central America to the Middle East and Africa, her research provided reports to corroborate the claims of each client. Her familial connection to migration and refugees motivates her work. As a child of refugees from Afghanistan, who fled the Soviet invasion, and as many other family members continue to seek refuge outside of Afghanistan, her entire life has been shaped and influenced by the refugee phenomenon. Josiane Alix is our second panelist. She is originally from Rwanda and currently a student at UConn studying biological sciences and physiology and neurobiology. After fleeing her country of Rwanda following the 1994 genocide, Josiane migrated to neighboring countries where she spent many years in refugee camps without formal education, eventually arriving in the US as a refugee. Before coming to UConn, Josiane attended Gateway Community College, where she majored in liberal arts and sciences. Last year, she founded an organization and aimed at addressing social circumstances and the unique care needs of low-income families in Rwanda. Recently, Josiane is a member of the UConn Global Health Symposium Organizing Committee and serves as a board member on Connecticut's Centers for Independent Living. She works as a research assistant in Yale Psychiatry labs, researching numerous diverse projects, all thematically related to understanding and providing services for disadvantaged populations, including those who are homeless and or have severe mental illnesses. She has a keen interest in pursuing a career dedicated to understanding migrant health and serving people with health and social problems. She hopes to take her longtime passion and fascination for doing research and apply it to solving public health problems of our time. Our third panelist is Wesley Kunz. Wesley is a current health promoter at IRIS, Connecticut's Integrated Refugee and Immigration Services, where she and her colleague Fershte run the small health team ensuring new arrival refugees and other immigrants. Leslie received her Bachelor of Science in Political Science almost 3 decades ago. Then, while contemplating a career, enrolled in a Master's of Public Health program, received her degree in 2017 from SCSU. Some of Leslie's defining work includes the Photo Voice Project, Resilient Refugees, What Can We Learn?, where she ran the project with 8 Arabic-speaking refugee women from Syria and Sudan. Our final panelist is Fershte Gangjavi, and she is the founder of Alina's Light. She came to New Haven in 2011 without speaking a word of English. A refugee from Afghanistan who grew up in Iran, she found herself facing a myriad of challenges and opportunities in New Haven. Currently, Fershte serves in multiple roles as a healthcare coordinator for IRIS and a professor at both University of New Haven and Wesleyan University. Despite Fershte's opportunity to attend college and secure work, it is uncommon among Afghani women refugees to gain English skills necessary to work as she has done. Alina's Light, her organization which helps refugee immigrant women learn English, obtain their driver's license, prenatal care if pregnant, and education, was born from her own experience as a woman and as a refugee. Today's panel will take place in a Q&A format. The panelists will be asked a series of questions. After each question, panelists will discuss their answers. After moving through all the questions, the audience will have an opportunity to ask their own questions. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce you to today's panelists and to give them a warm welcome. Thank you, panelists, for being here today. So first, I'd like to ask you to each talk about your personal experience related to refugees and refugee health, and your research and personal experience.
So I just want to make sure. Can everybody hear me? Yes. Okay. So just as Sahil introduced, so I'm actually a child of refugees. My dad came in 1989 from Kabul, Afghanistan. So at the time, the Soviets had just left, but there was the rise of Mujahideen and many more terrorist groups, and it was a place that really wasn't inhabitable anymore. So my dad came in 1989, and after a year, he received his green card. After 4 years, he was able to become a citizen. In 1983, my mother and my two brothers were brought over. So in 1988, I was born in Kunz, New York. And although it seems like it was something that was very long ago and very distant, it's actually something that I carry with me every single day in my life. I think in terms of just refugee health, I think the part that I carry most with me every day and something that I see in my parents is that it has destroyed their psychological health and their mental health. So it's something that we carry with us every single day. In addition to other health problems that come from enduring such long journeys, my experience, just as Sahil really nicely stated, is specifically with refugee integration and refugee resettlement. I found that there are definitely gaps in the refugee integration programs that we have, so oftentimes the needs of refugees are not met through the services that are provided, and I hope to address those disconnects and hopefully bridge them someday.
Hi, I'm Josiane. So as I think some of you who are here during the documentary premiere, I'm from Rwanda, and after the genocide in 1994, I migrated to neighboring countries in Congo, where I spent years like in the refugee camp, like different refugee camps in Congo and also in Zambia. Eventually, I came to the United States in 2000, and I was able to, even like 5 years later, I was able to gain my citizenship. But I'm so actually very grateful that we are sitting up here today talking about refugee health, because I think it's very important. It's a topic that requires not only, it requires different perspectives and partnership. And not only just like, I don't think refugee health is something that only has to be addressed by health workers. As I engage citizenship and academia, we need to partner with organizations that our community, that work in the community, and those that are receiving refugees, to make sure that they are accessing like the right services they need. My experience with refugee health, as Sahil mentioned in his remark, I was one of those refugees who didn't go to appointments. Yeah, I know it's bad. They had to, I remember my case manager, actually, she had to like come to my house a couple times to drag me to my appointments. Why did I not go to my appointments? I was scared. I didn't speak the language. I thought I was being judged, and it also had to do with the care received there. So I had to be hunted down to go to my appointments.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Wesley. It's such a pleasure to be here, and it's been such a great, exciting, informative day. Just want to say thank you for that. I think what Josiane just said was a great segue into me explaining a little bit about me and what I do at IRIS. We're a refugee resettlement agency in Connecticut, and I work with Freshta. We're a small healthcare team, and one thing that we do, a major thing that we do, is we help all newcoming refugees and immigrants, help them get access to healthcare, and that includes teaching them how to take the bus to appointments, teaching them how to make their own appointments, the doctor-patient relationship, everything that is just so brand new in coming here. And I just had to chuckle in Josiane admitting she's one of those that didn't go to her appointments. And it's just, there's just so many barriers that I can appreciate that newcomers face in coming here. I can just look around and in talking with a lot of you today, many of you are not from Connecticut or not from the US, and I can just kind of imagine what your experiences were in coming here. And even if you spoke English, even if you joined family here, I'm sure you had struggles in kind of figuring out how does all this work, and especially when it comes to our complicated medical care system. It's just every day Freshta and I are learning new things about it, and as we help our clients navigate how to figure stuff out, how to get the care they need, how to get the medications they need. So it's just really challenging in that way. just quickly, I'll mention a little bit about my research project that I had done, the photo voice, because a theme that we're talking about today is the importance of stories, as Josiane had shared hers. And it's storytelling is very important, and it's very important for the listener, for the audience to understand. That's how we connect as humans. So I had this opportunity to do this project, and one thing that at IRIS, we don't like to ask our refugee clients about their past experiences. We don't want to potentially re-traumatize them. We're always available to listen, but we just take it as you're in America now, we're gonna help you resettle as quickly as you can. But having this opportunity to do the photo voice project, a lot of our clients do not speak English, and unfortunately, I don't speak any other language. So there's just that major communication barrier. Even if you want to exchange stories, if you don't speak the same language, how are you gonna do that? So photo voice was a way to be able to do that. I don't know, maybe I learned about it in my public health program. In fact, this was my project that I had to do, my thesis. And I thought, wow, that sounds like so much fun, and this way I can get my thesis out of the way. And it was just an amazing experience, because using interpreters, I had to have an interpreter course, but the women were all given cameras. They were kind of taught a little bit of photography, but not to make them photographers per se, but basically to learn how to use the camera. And then they were instructed to go into their homes, into their communities, and take pictures of what was important to them, what kind of helped them with their healthcare problems or needs, and what barriers did they face. And then that was a weekly assignment, and each week we would come back and have a group discussion where they would create narratives around those pictures. And then they chose 2 each, and we had a public reception, and it was just an amazing experience for all of us. And I learned so much from it, and I think that's one thing I'm also very thankful for, is every day I have the opportunity to learn more and grow more. So.
This is Farasheh. I'm happy to see you here, but I'm gonna start with a special words. You may heard it around you. Salam. It's a Farsi word, Persian words, Dari words. It's now universal words. Means peace, hello. I usually start my conversation with this. And the question dear Sahel asked, I'm thinking about it to answer my experience. I cannot say my experience because that's my life. It's piece of my life every day. I born as a refugee, and I live as a refugee. I'm sure I will die one day as a refugee. It's hard to have name tag as a refugee all the time. When you talk about refugee, when the people are on the media talk about refugee, always they are down than other people. It's hard to, make yourself equal or above the normal range. People like me, and there you heard the story before, and many people similar to me try to fight every day for all their rights, for all our rights, to say we are human. Yes, we became a refugee. That wasn't our choice. That was the way our life set up. And 40 years ago, my family became a refugee from Afghanistan to a different country. And after a while, I born and raised there for many years. I wasn't allowed to go to school and get education. I loved to study. That was my dream, one day go to school. My father made a fake ID, and I went to school until I graduated from university. At the age of 12, he came to me and told me, now is the time I have to do an action. We have to have a school for our kids. And I'm gonna start that school. I asked, that's a good idea, but I'm gonna teach to these students He immediately looked at me and said, "You." Okay, I have just 12 years old and I'm in the 4th grade. I cannot do this. He said, "You can do that because I can just only make one fake ID for you. I cannot make many fake ID for everyone to send them to the regular school. I break one time a law for good reason, and now you are a good reason, and you have to continue." He put me on a way, and I don't think this way gonna stop. I have to continue, no matter where I am. I was at that country, I started school with his help at the age of 12. The day I left that country, our school grew and we had 300 students. 150 in the morning, 150 in the afternoon. They all were Afghan refugee kids. I was happy and proud when the border get opened through the Germany. In 2015, thousands of my students, immigrants from that country to Germany and to so many other countries. Now they have access to a proper, educational system. And I'm sure one day they would be, like all of them, more successful than me. In 2011, my life changed. It was September 27, 2011, which I call it my birthday. As a refugee kid, when you're born in so many places, they're not gonna ask you what day and what month is your birthday. They have a set up as 1-1 and then just the year. I was at that 1-1%. Because of that, I don't have a clear of what day and what month I born. I pick September 27 is as a birthday for myself. That was the day I stepped down on GFK. That was the day I said, okay, I was 25 years at a location, I weren't allowed to do things. Now I'm here, and I am allowed to do many things I want. I cannot walk, I have to run. I don't know how many years I'm gonna be at this board, but I have to keep something. My next generation and next generation say, yes, Farasha did these things and help this many people, even one. That can help a lot. You know, I had motivation. I will do this, I will do this, I will do this. But when I came here and get a bus from my home to downtown of the New Haven with my mother, we lost on the bus. All my hope on first day went down. I said, no, it's not as easy as I think. Easiest things, getting a bus was hard for me because I came as a refugee. As my colleagues say, it wasn't easy to find a direction, to find a way, to move as fast as I want. Couple of months as a refugee, I sit down. I had help, many help from IRIS, where I work right now. But something inside of me was down. I should make it strong and have motivation again. And what do you think can motivate the people to move? In my idea, in my life, what my father taught me, education. I take out my bag and say, I'm gonna go register myself to a college, somewhere. My agency at that time wasn't helpful for me, said, we don't have budget, you have to just start working, first work, then education. I told myself, no, I was at that country, the law didn't let me go to school. Now I'm a free country. My rent cannot keep me out of school. I went, asked people, I was in dental school, dental office, someone were talking about college. I heard the name, Gateway Community College, where my friend went. I said, okay, I can start from there. Even I had my bachelor, but I didn't know where should I start. These are experience, these are life. I'm talking to life? Okay, then I went there said, okay, I want to learn, I want to study. Can you help me? There were many people. I started my journey there. After that, I transferred to Southern to get a bachelor. I graduated. While I was at college, I was working at Yale as a tutor for the Persian language. I was working as Yale New Haven Hospital as a medical interpreter. I'm just telling you, my English was zero the day I came. I need a part, and I just derived from my caseworker what I need. My English wasn't good. It takes time sitting home and practice. I had really, really nice people at IRIS. They gave me a student worker, volunteers. Everyone, when they come to my home, I just sit with them and practice English. They're helping me a lot, and I learn from them day by day. I use it in my life. They teach me how to use the app, how to get the bus. Connecticut is so cold, I have to get my driver license. I had eye problems, was difficult to get driver license. Many people say, no, don't do that. But I fight with myself. You can do that. It takes 2 years until I got driver license. I got to the different boards and fight for it. One of my students looked at me and said, he's a PhD student at Yale, now he's teaching at Yale. I was working with him, Persian language. He told me, there is something on your face. I feel you hide from everyone. Why you're not talking about it? I told him, yes. My husband, he's behind. He's at home. We got engaged. After 40 days, I have to come here, and no one knows. As a refugee, you're always scared to tell you cannot trust people. You cannot tell them what you have in your heart. But someone like him was a sociologist major. He can find out on my face. And then he said, I can help you. We went to the lawyer and opened a case through IRIS. They have a really good legal system, and filed it for my husband. After 2 years, I was very, very, very lucky. After 2 years, he joined us in 2013. And we had one American wedding here, and we started our lives here. He's here in front of me and always supporting me and working with me. This is my life. I cannot say experience. This is what I built here. After I graduate, I love working with people. That's my passion. That's the road my father put me on that. I went to the IRIS and looking for jobs. When jobs opening came up, I applied and had an interview with my best friend's colleague, coworker. He accepted me for the position and working there as a healthcare coordinator. What I got from IRIS, what I learned from them, I just transferred it to the people who are like me. Majority of them now recently come from Afghanistan, and they speak Pashto and Dari. I'm able to talk with them and try to help them. This is one group, and there is like several other groups. Sometimes you don't need to understand the language, as I say, when you know the feeling, when you have a passion to help, language is not going to be a barrier. Then, I think that's enough. I said enough. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for letting us into your life, each of you, so intimately. There's so much behind each of these stories. I think it's important to unpack that a little bit more. We've talked a bit about kind of the barriers you face to healthcare and the barriers you just face in general as a refugee. But I'd like to ask a broader question, and something that's very relevant, I think, in today's current refugee crisis. I think we can call it a global refugee crisis. What do you believe to be the biggest threat to refugees? Yes, refugees in their healthcare, but refugees in general. And how do we face this threat? How do we address it? So I'll open the floor to you.
Okay. Okay. Safety. Right now, with this situation we have, with the new government we have, like with the new system we have, safety is a concern. I'm as a Muslim, as a refugee, I still scared to go outside or talk about my rights. I try to create a small organization helping refugee and immigrant women to get home tutoring if they have a disabled kid or if they are themselves disabled and have some, barriers to go to the regular English classes. And I get students from UNH, Southern, and Yale, and take them to the family's house, try to help them, and they start at the meeting right now. We are talking. There is like 5 women with 10 volunteers. They see each other and just talk, and like have the class even today. At the beginning, when I started the project, like UNH Service Learning Program director asked me, is it safe to send students to family's house? I said, is it safe a refugee woman with a scarf walk around New Haven? These are the same. Always, in any life, any situation, there is challenges. But if you not take that challenge, you always are a step back. You have to take the challenge and go for it. I took that guy to the families that I'm working with, and when he saw everything, like he was like very happy and excited. Now the students from these 3 universities goes to the family's house and working with the clients. I don't like to say clients, they are not clients, they are the very strong women. They want to do, they are fight every day for their rights and their lives. They all have a disabled kids and unable to go classes, but when class go to them, that will be that awesome. I think they can be all empowered and independent soon. With this community, if everyone vote and try to have a better, decision for our future, I think would be better for next generation of refugees. First of all, I don't want to see any refugee in the world. Hopefully there is none one day. Thank you.
I'll just add briefly to that. It's certainly, I would say, the current political environment, which, as we all know, it kind of empowers people to act more openly with their political views, which definitely have many consequences to that. So not only for our refugees and immigrants here in America being exposed to that and the potential threats of violence and the real violence, but also it's affecting them, certainly affecting their health when they're so worried about family back home. Now that the travel ban has been in place for maybe 1.5 years, 2 years now, it's just, I've seen how when our clients come here, they're not as hopeful as they used to be. Because sure, they're hopeful there in America that their life will get better, but they're so worried and so concerned about their family members that are stuck in many places in the world that are and they're faced with decisions. If they are, say, a Syrian family that fled to Jordan and maybe 2 of them had the opportunity to come to America, like Farishta and her mother had the opportunity, Farishta had to leave her husband behind. And that just creates so much stress that we see manifest itself in a lot of psychosomatic pain and illness and emergency room visits for constant headaches and not being able to walk properly because of the way the stress affects you. It's been very upsetting. So we can only be hopeful. So you hear all the time how important it is to vote. It's really important. So.
Thank you so much for highlighting those important issues. I think the biggest threat to me, I feel like it's lack of good jobs that provides like health insurance, because refugees, like in my experience when I came here, we had free health care for a certain amount of time. I believe after like a month, we're cut off, or a year, something like that. It's probably have changed. I don't know. Maybe
It's the same thing.
it's still the same. Okay. So after that time, we're expected to find our own health care insurance. And you can imagine if you don't speak the language, you don't have the education, it's hard to find a good job that offers like medical insurance. So I remember I was working production jobs. I was working at a post office and I couldn't get medical insurance. So I think that's the biggest threat. Also because refugees require continuity of health care. So it's not like, okay, you come here and then maybe you go to a doctor for the first time or second time and that's it. Like refugees go through so much, like they require continuity of care. So if they are not able to get good insurance and if there is no access to care, basic health care, it's hard to be able to follow up. And that's why I think we need, a lot of times we talk about like universal like health care, but also we need universal access to health care. Access to health care is important.
I just want to build briefly off of the points that have already been made here. So I think that oftentimes refugees' lives are very much shaped by their trauma, and when you come to a different place hoping to finally start healing, but that trauma continues and there's no safety and there's no security, there's never a time where the healing can actually begin. So you were still traumatized. So I think something that, for example, I think the best example here is for just recently, as I'm sure you're all familiar with, the shooting at the New Zealand mosque. Most of those people were actually Afghan, most of them were also refugees. They had come to New Zealand in hopes of a better life and to seek safety, and it was still taken from them. So I think I know at the time that my dad came here, he was pretty much out of touch with what was going on at home, so he wasn't really familiar with what the situation was like for everyone that he left behind. But now with social media and globalization, you're not really able to leave it, so you're gonna struggle more and more with guilt and more with survivor's guilt and how am I here and they're there. And then not only that, when you hear that so many people who look exactly like you and have lived so many of your similar experiences are struggling and being killed while you get to live so freely and so full of privilege, it's going to continue to traumatize you, and it's something that we need to continuously address.
Thank you so much for that. If you could briefly also touch upon, I know Susan, you've done extensive research with refugee populations, and Wesley, I know you have as well. If you could briefly talk about how you see resilience in these populations, talking to so many refugees, and I know both Josiane and Fershay, they are both very resilient. How do refugees build this resilience, and how is that part of the narrative today? Do you think it is a part of the narrative? And if not, do you think we need to include that in the narrative?
I would say that resilience, especially today, was part of the narrative, but everybody knows how resilient immigrants are. I mean, to pack up your entire life in one location and to restart it somewhere else, that in itself is courage and bravery beyond something that I could imagine, because I was not the one who had to do it. So in terms of being lost in the national narrative, I would definitely say that it's gone, because if resilience was something that people recognized and granted to refugees, we would see more policies similar to in Kampala, where refugees are seen as actually an economic benefit and seen as a social benefit too. So I think if we remember that these are not only people who need help, but can provide so much to the world because of who they are innately, it's going to help us be more accepting and more responsive to the needs of refugees.
To add on that, I guess I'm gonna say, for me, or like the people that I know, for us it was the uncertainty of the future, so we had to pretty much like go out there and learn to overcome any obstacles that were in the way. It wasn't so much about just just wanting handouts. We were seeking for opportunities to be able to contribute and build ourselves, and but at the same time also contribute to society. So we were just fighting to be like regular citizens, I guess I can say, and contribute to society.
I would say resilience is definitely part of the narrative, but I don't really think it's something that a person has and they're always going to have. I think as an organization like IRIS and our other political organizations, social organizations, we need to make sure that we're giving our refugees the supports that they need in order to maintain or strengthen their resilient factors. And in our healthcare program and in IRIS as a whole, we've really, over the past few years, kind of broadened our ability to offer these kind of supports. We have what we call like wellness programming. We offer now exercise classes, sewing, gardening, things that we hope to bring our clients together to create communities where they can feel safe, where they can kind of heal, but also maybe learn a new skill or learn something about themselves, things that will help them, because that resilience is so necessary as we're talking about the obstacles people face once they come here. It's really necessary because when you come here as a refugee, you have to hit the ground running. You only get 4 or 5 months of your rent paid. After that, you're expected to be out there and working and paying the rent. And rent is so high. Housing is a big issue that was mentioned before, and it's a big issue in New Haven where we work. And it's just so stressful, and then you throw the bills on top of that, and then you throw the inadequate health insurance. And yeah, we try to do what we can within our limited budget to help maintain and grow our clients to have that resilience to deal and be able to hopefully have that a stronger, healthier life.
I have a little English problem here, but what I understand from that beautiful word you mentioned it is how we can empower refugees and how we can help them to, have their needs are done and can help them to, continue their road. I think, especially, I really interested on women's education. When young generation, I see a lot around me at IRIS, or really nice education coordinator at IRIS, Ms. Tanya, try to, enroll them in the school and help them for better higher education. I would wish if there is more scholarship or more grant something for refugee kids and new generation. When they have this opportunity, they can get to a better college and continue their education. Sending them all in school is good, but sending them to a good school is different. There is like many nice schools around here. If we have more scholarship for refugee kids, for example, for UConn, then we will make sure they're going to be like, huge differences. And the community would be diverse at UConn, Yale, or UNH, and some other universities that I'm working with. It's better if they have more scholarship, if they have more grants, or if they have more programs, specifically for refugee or immigrant families. I did a quick research on, especially for education, for the kids who are in these 3 universities around me. There wasn't like that many refugee family, like kids are in school, and I found out because of lack of education for their moms. If there is a program or the way we can educate women, then they can transfer it to the kids, and the kids will have a better educational system. That's why I call it Eleanor's Light. working with the women to do English at home and help them to get driver license. Some people ask me why I mention it, why the name of this organization named is Elena's Light. Does anyone have any idea why it's Elena's Light? Can I ask audience?
Yes.
No idea? Omar, you know it. Okay, Omar, yes.
It's your daughter's name.
Yes, that's true. It's my daughter's name, Elena, and the meaning is light and have a bright future in Farsi. But I'm not that selfish to have my daughter's name, organization name. In some of the part of my country and Middle East country, some, I'm not gonna say all, if you mention woman's name, it's a taboo. And I see they cannot mention. They say sister of Peter, brother of, like sister, like wife of Ahmad. They never mention a name. I said, okay, I'm gonna break this rule and have my daughter representative of women and have an Elena. The second light, I think I talk a lot about my father. I wish he was alive and can hear these things. Always he told me study during the night. When you wake up and see when the light is on, he was feel happy and say, okay, I raised a daughter, she cares about education and she wants to study and she will have a good future. In his mind, education means light. Always he said, when you have more education at home, it means you have more life at home. You have bright future. Elena's light try to bring this light and education to the family, to the immigrant and refugees family, to their homes. I today came here to talk about my rules at IRES, and I think I talk a lot more about Elena's life. I hope you forgive me. I'm not talking a lot about IRES because I have my colleague here, she said, and I don't want to repeat it again. But if you went to the website and would like to know more about both beautiful and nice places and work, please take IRISCT and also type Elena's Light New Haven. And I would be happy to receive all your emails and respond to them. Also, what I need from you and really want to appreciate too, if you can help me, I need a student volunteer. There is many women, even around the location you are, and I would like to send students to their homes to do the project I have. We will give you all the materials you need, curriculum, everything. Just we need 2-3 hours from your, every week, from your time to help these families. And then if you want to help us financially, everything is directed on the 2 websites, and IRES also at Elena's Light. Feel free to talk with me, give me your emails or email me. Thank you.
So I think we have just about 10 minutes left, but there are 2 quick questions that I did want to cover. Maybe not quick, but if we can briefly talk about this. Currently, the rhetoric surrounding refugees has a lot to do with deservingness politics. I'm sure all of you are familiar with this idea that our refugees, people, sometimes in the media they say, immigrants and refugees are draining resources, but you, Susan, you discussed the economic benefit of refugees. But again, the media can sometimes be oversaturated with these other stories. How do we reframe that narrative, and do you think how do we address this? How do we say that, that refugees are benefiting our society, and how do we get people to care more about refugee populations?
I have a 2-pronged answer to that. So I think in terms of describing it like holistically, I think one way that we can start shifting the conversation, shifting the narratives, rather than seeing this as burdens or people that are entering the country, we need to realize that these are humans who have human rights, and they have the right to realize and fulfill all of those same things that we have the rights to fulfill, and we have access to have our rights realized, and there's simply people that just don't have that access, but because they're humans, they need it, it's innate, it's natural, and we need to move past this, seeing them as some other type of person where, oh, our policies don't reach out to them, or we have to do additional things for them. No, these are humans and these are their human rights. So, I mean, if you understand it in that holistic sense that this is something they deserve simply for who they are and who they are innately, then I think we're able to get past that of seeing them as benefits or burdens. But on a smaller communal level, I think what's essential with IRIS and different refugee integration organizations is that the host population, the native population, meaning Americans, they need to have more exposure to refugees in a way that normalizes their presence. So, for example, like having garden classes and wellness classes, that's great when Americans are also involved in those. So rather than just having a bunch of refugees from different countries interacting with each other, it is so much more important to normalize their presence there by having Americans too, so that they can understand what refugees' lives are like, what they do, invite them into their homes. And once we start bridging it that way, we're able to get over those differences that we think that we have with each other when we really don't.
I think we could also, if we just look behind, like we mentioned, like the number, we hear in the media when they mention the numbers, 25 million refugees. But we have to ask ourselves, like, who are these people? What are their stories? So it's important to see the person. Behind that number, there's a person. And also, I think it's important to, as community members, to educate ourselves on why are people moving in the first place? Why are they seeking like asylum? You know, like why migration? You know, one of the themes for today is globalization and health. Why are people moving in the first place? So if we start asking ourselves those questions, and then also seeing the person behind the number, that can reframe, and of course also having this type of conversation, that can reframe the narrative that we see in the media.
I would just add to that, there's, I think, a growing number of organizations, both here in Connecticut and nationwide, that are assisting refugees and other immigrants, and there's many ways to get involved, whether it's financially or becoming a cultural companion or volunteering or just kind of being more receptive to saying hello and engaging in conversation with someone, that you can learn a lot that way, and I think that's a really important part of it.
For this question, I think we have a really good person at IRIS. He can answer it well. He always said, like many businesses and works that in the United States, builded with a refugee, an immigrant. If you do the research, on the back of most of them are a refugee or immigrant family. And I'm just gonna talk about the people I saw here, like in my life here in Connecticut. I know many like personal friends. They build businesses and working here, pay taxes, and do many things, many good things here, and they benefit all the community, no matter of the American, Spanish, or any other community. Also, if I'm gonna talk about the language part, myself, I'm teaching at 2 university Persian language, and there is like many students I think have the benefit of that. If they want to learn this language, they have to travel to that country to get this education and back here, but now they have the resource here. And I study, that's my major, and I'm doing transferring same thing to them. This is, I think, the truly the benefit as I can see in Connecticut.
I think I'd like to open up the floor to some audience questions as well. We have about 10 minutes left, so I'd love to take some audience questions before closing.
Bring this bad boy back. Thank you. For those of you working directly in the clinic, do you see any specific health trends of diseases that are affecting these refugees, both here in the U.S. and then in camps, if you know of any there?
As I said, when refugee comes here, there is like a certain health problem. I cannot say like which one, like I don't like to say because I don't want you to look at refugee all with that I don't want you to make an imagine of yourself with knowing the refugee with all this negative illness or background. Yes, there is a certain health condition when they come, not all of them, like as a regular person, like mental health or, leg problem for kids, and some other regular things and checkup, but doctors are doing a good job around us at the Yemen Hospital. We are partnering with them and trying to follow what they say to, improve refugees' health.
Yeah, I think it's kind of twofold that as Josiane had shown a picture on her slide of a camp in Rwanda, right? Maybe it showed the picture of the refugee camp. So, I've been working with refugees for I think 7 years now, and even just seeing that picture helps me better understand where some of our clients are coming from. We just resettled a large family from Congo, and all the kids were born in the refugee camp. None of them went to school. Omar's shaking his head, and I just want to he's shaking his head, yes, I want to take this quick opportunity just to throw a shout out to Omar. I think many of you know him. He's become a really integral part of our healthcare team at IRIS. Thank you so much, Omar. He knows this family I'm referring to. And the kids are pretty much all malnourished. And so this family come here with different healthcare needs than another family recently resettled from the Middle East that have several kind of lifestyle diseases, chronic diseases, more what we see here in America. So it really depended, and again, because they're all individual to generalize, but that's, I think, kind of trend-wise what we're seeing.
I just want to make a small point. So unfortunately, I can't speak on trends either, but something I do want to shed light on is that we are speaking about refugees as a kind of a monolithic type of experience, but for example, Black women in the US are the most mistreated, undertreated population here, and that does not change when you're a refugee. So if you are a Black woman refugee, your experience with healthcare might be just as compromised, if not more compromised, than any other refugees. And that's something that we have to remain cognizant of when we're speaking about this, is that it's not just that refugees as a whole do not have access to healthcare, but it's all the intersection of identities that plays in here as well too. So unfortunately, you're not going to lose your Blackness and brownness when it comes to these types of things.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the audience?
We have time for one more.
Yeah.
So I actually worked at a doctor's office translating for Spanish-speaking, people that just, come from Hispanic countries. And I was just wondering how difficult you guys found it to find translators or to communicate with your practitioners, because I can't imagine how difficult something as personal as your healthcare can be in translating that.
So by law, any institution that accepts federal Medicaid, which is the refugee healthcare program, their insurance comes through Medicaid, those providers are required to provide interpreters or interpretation services. And it would be great if in reality that the law played out that way. However, it doesn't. We are very fortunate at IRIS that we have a partnership with Yale University Hospital, that they provide our refugee clinics, and they, at the clinics themselves, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can tell.
Okay, so at the clinics themselves, and also within the greater organization of Yale, they do provide interpreters. So that's always our go-to, but not everyone does, especially, say, dentists. We struggle constantly trying to find dentists that accept Medicaid and provide interpretation. So
thank you so much for that question. So I'd just now like to wrap up the panel with some closing remarks. So as technology advances, the world becomes smaller and we become closer. We're currently amidst a global refugee crisis, as we've just heard. Every minute, 24 people around the world are forced to flee their homes. That's 34,000 people a day who have to leave behind everything, but finding safety and a better tomorrow. Our actions as a nation do not reflect the responsibility we have to refugees and migrants. In a nation founded by religious refugees, Protestants fleeing from religious persecution, a nation where we tout the American dream and cherish the ability to become something from nothing, we are quick to turn a blind eye to our brothers and sisters in need. In 2016, the US admitted 85,000 refugees, a number that declined to fewer than 54,000 refugees the next year, the lowest number in a decade after President Trump was elected. In 2018, the cap was reduced to 45,000, and this year, the cap has been set to 30,000, the lowest in history, and we're expected to accept much less. This is important to remember that behind each of these numbers is a person. Today, our panelists have illustrated the complex issues surrounding the refugee narrative and the health gap, which reflects the complexity of the field of global health itself. Global health is not a foreign concept that focuses on the health of the other. Instead, it is the idea of providing other humans the same freedoms we are provided by good health. The purpose of this panel was to start a critical conversation around the refugee narrative, but also to explore the role we can play in assisting marginalized communities. We've just began to touch on these topics, and I encourage you to talk to our panelists more after this panel, and to talk to other refugees and other migrants and learn their stories. Regardless of how we engage in global health, it is important to be cognizant of our actions and the impact they have. I'd like to thank all of our panelists today for taking the time to have such a productive and insightful discussion on reframing refugee health.